Hi, I'm Olivia Harper, 21, and I've always tried to play by the rules. A college graduate, working at a small marketing firm, and doing my best to make my parents proud. But nothing I do seems to matter. Yesterday, my world completely tilted. My parents, out of nowhere, told me something I couldn't believe. Olivia, you cannot date anyone until Emma is married.
Emma.
My little sister. She's 15. 15. My parents seriously expect me to wait for her to get married before I even think about love? I sat frozen on the kitchen floor, staring at the tile, my mind racing. How could they even consider this fair? I've been responsible, respectful, and careful about their rules. I've sacrificed my social life, my hobbies, even chances to connect with people I liked, all to avoid upsetting them. And now this? It felt like my own dreams were being locked in a cage. Mom, Madeline Whitman, looked at me with that cold, commanding stare, as if I was committing a grave crime by merely existing. Dad, Gideon Whitman, just nodded silently, avoiding my gaze. And Emma, sweet, oblivious Emma, was smiling at her phone, completely unaware that her mere existence had now become a barrier to my life. I couldn't even speak. Words refused to form, anger and disbelief knotting in my chest. It wasn't just unfair, it was absurd. And as I sat there, the weight of years of favoritism, control, and constant comparisons pressed down harder than ever. Something inside me snapped. I realized this might be the breaking point I didn't know I had been waiting for. Growing up in the Whitman household was complicated, to say the least. I'm Olivia Harper, and ever since I can remember, my life has been a balancing act between trying to earn my parents' approval and surviving their constant judgment. Mom, Madeline Whitman, has always been exacting and critical. Nothing I did was ever enough. Grades? Not perfect. Chores? Done but not on time. Achievements? Barely acknowledged unless they somehow reflected on the family name. Dad, Gideon Whitman, was quiet, distant, and mostly neutral, letting Mom take the lead in enforcing every rule. Then there's my sister, Emma Harper. Sweet, bright, and always the center of attention, even when she didn't deserve it. She could spill juice on the carpet, forget her homework, or demand impossible things, and she'd be pampered with forgiveness and praise. Meanwhile, I learned early on that mistakes were magnified and personal ambitions were often stifled. Birthdays, holidays, even casual family dinners were subtle tests. Mom would compare me to Emma constantly. Olivia, why can't you be more like your sister? Or Emma never complains about chores, Olivia. Take note. Those words dug into me. Over time, I stopped feeling like myself and began feeling like I was living for everyone else. Always the responsible one. Always the obedient one. Always the one expected to wait. Even as a child, I noticed patterns of favoritism. Emma was shielded from rules, while I was reminded of responsibilities. I developed a quiet resentment but kept it buried, afraid of confrontation and hoping that eventually, doing everything right, would earn me the approval I craved. But now, sitting in my kitchen, realizing I can't even date until Emma gets married, it's all so clear. Those childhood rules weren't just minor annoyances. They were a training ground for control, conditioning me to sacrifice my happiness for the sake of someone else. And I'm done pretending it's okay. Since high school, I've tried to live by the rules, even when they felt unfair. I worked part-time jobs to save for college, helped around the house without complaint, and avoided anything that might upset my parents, Madeline and Gideon Whitman. I even put my personal life on hold, thinking that one day, following their rules would earn me the freedom to live my own life. But no matter how much I gave, it was never enough. I missed out on parties, dates, and even friendships because I was constantly under the shadow of their expectations. My love life was a distant dream, an impossible luxury I wasn't allowed to touch. And now, with their new decree about Emma getting married first, that dream felt further away than ever. I remember last month staying up late helping Emma with her science project, sacrificing my sleep, so she could impress her teachers. She didn't even thank me properly. She just giggled and went to bed, leaving me to finish the cleanup alone. And yet, if I asked for help with my work or a small favor, it was always met with sighs or complaints. The tension inside me built every day, simmering quietly while I followed the rules. I met a guy recently, Ethan Sullivan, someone who made me laugh in ways I hadn't felt in years. He wasn't perfect, but he was kind, and being with him reminded me of the life I had been missing. We talked about going on a small date, nothing extravagant, just a chance to be normal. But as soon as I brought it up at home, the crushing weight of my parents' rule hit me. You cannot date anyone until Emma is married. That sentence repeated in my mind like a drumbeat. How could they demand I sacrifice my happiness for a girl who hasn't even started dating yet? For someone barely old enough to drive? Every act of obedience, every quiet sacrifice, every suppressed dream had led to this moment. And the tension that had been quietly simmering inside me finally reached a boil. I could feel my patience snapping. Something had to give, and deep down I knew it wouldn't be me who bent this time. It all came to a head one Friday evening. I had finally worked up the courage to tell Ethan Sullivan that I liked him, and maybe we could go on a proper date. My heart raced with hope, small, cautious hope that something good could exist outside my parents' oppressive rules. But as soon as I mentioned it to Madeline Whitman, her eyes narrowed and her voice sharpened like a blade. Olivia, I told you. No dating until Emma is married. Do you think rules don't apply to you? Her words were heavy, final, and utterly suffocating. Gideon Whitman stayed silent, avoiding my gaze, his inactions speaking louder than words. And Emma, blissfully unaware of the storm, just shrugged and went back to scrolling her phone, completely unconcerned with the chaos she had inspired. For the first time in my life, I felt completely invisible. My feelings, my desires, my happiness, none of it mattered. My chest ached, my throat burned, and all the small resentments I had buried over the years erupted like a volcano. I grabbed my coat without a word, the cold air hitting me like a slap when I stepped outside. My parents shouted after me, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back. That slam of the front door behind me felt symbolic, final, a declaration that I wouldn't be contained anymore. Something inside me had finally broken free. I realized then that obedience, patience, and sacrifice weren't going to earn me freedom. If I wanted my life, my happiness, I had to take it myself. The next few days were a blur. I didn't answer calls, ignored texts, and slowly started packing my life into boxes. I sold some of my belongings, quit my job at the marketing firm, and made plans to move to a city far enough that Madeline and Gideon Whitman couldn't control me. I needed to vanish, not out of spite, but out of necessity. I found a small apartment in Asheville, North Carolina, took a modest job at a local boutique marketing agency, and began the painstaking process of building a life that was truly mine. For the first time in years, I didn't have to measure my happiness against Emma's milestones or my parents' expectations. I could simply exist for myself. The beginning was rough. Bills, responsibilities, and loneliness pressed down like a weight. But each day, as I unpacked boxes and arranged my tiny apartment, I felt a quiet sense of triumph. I met new friends, kind, supportive people who valued me for who I was, not for my obedience or my family's rules. Slowly, laughter returned to my life, real laughter, the kind I hadn't felt in years. I even reconnected with Ethan Sullivan. Our relationship moved slowly, cautiously, but it was real, unburdened by absurd rules or expectations. I realized that freedom isn't just about leaving. It's about creating a space where you can breathe, make mistakes, and grow without guilt. Every day, I felt more like myself. The anger and resentment from the Whitman household began to fade, replaced with a quiet strength. I was no longer their obedient child. I was Olivia Harper, independent, resilient, and finally in control of my own life. It didn't take long before the Whitman family tried to reach me. At first, it was subtle. A text from Emma Harper, apologetic and hesitant. I didn't mean to make things so hard. I'm sorry, Liv. My heart ached reading it, but I knew it wasn't enough. Emma's apologies were soft, half-hearted, like she didn't fully understand the weight of their control over me. Then Madeline Whitman and Gideon Whitman escalated. The calls, emails, and even visits to Asheville. Each one carried a different tactic: guilt, manipulation, exaggerating fake emergencies. "We're sick, Olivia. We need you home." Or, "Emma's heartbroken without you around." But I was no longer the same person who had silently followed every rule. I calmly declined their manipulations, refusing to let them pull me back into a life where I had no agency. I reminded myself that survival sometimes meant saying no to people you love, even family. Even when they tried social manipulation, spreading rumors among mutual acquaintances, I stayed grounded. I focused on the friends and community I had built in Asheville, people who saw me for who I was, not for what my family wanted me to be. Their attempts at control failed, and each failure strengthened my resolve. For the first time, I felt unshakable. I realized that boundaries are not just tools for confrontation. They are shields for your soul. And mine was finally safe. Looking back, I see now that leaving wasn't an act of rebellion, it was survival. I left the Whitman household, not out of anger, but out of necessity. I had spent too long bending myself into a shape that fit their rules, their expectations, and their favoritism. I had lost myself in the process. Now, in Asheville, I am finally Olivia Harper, free, independent, and alive in my own life. I laugh without guilt, make choices without fear, and even love without constraint. The past still lingers in memory, but it no longer controls me. I've learned that family isn't defined by blood alone. Love, respect, and care are what truly make a family. And sometimes, the bravest, most loving act you can take for yourself is to walk away from those who can't see your worth. Choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. It's reclaiming your life, your joy, and your right to exist fully. And that's exactly what I did. I hope anyone listening knows. Your happiness is worth fighting for. Boundaries are not betrayals. They are lifelines. And sometimes, letting go is the only way to truly find peace.